Google Maps once caught a murder in progress, but the story doesn't end there. Another case was solved thanks to a blurred rooftop on the map. So, we're going to talk about every crime that Google Maps has helped crack. The Cameroon Soldiers. In 2018, a short video went viral on social media. In that footage, a group of soldiers wearing Cameroon military uniforms were seen escorting 2 women and 2 children, 1 young girl and another baby, being carried on her mother's back down a dusty dirt road in northern Cameroon. They were blindfolded and accused by the Cameroonian soldiers of having ties to the terrorist group Boko Haram, but there was no evidence whatsoever. Moments later, they were shot, and all 4 victims fell to the ground. The entire scene was filmed on a phone and spread rapidly across social networks. When the Cameroonian government saw the video, they immediately dismissed it, calling it a fake video meant to tarnish their image, denying everything and claiming the location was unidentified. But the BBC Africa Eye investigative team uncovered the truth. They began pinpointing the location by analysing the scenery in the video. The dirt road, the ridges and hills in the distance, along with other geographical features, were their first clues. They started comparing these images to a massive database on Google Earth, focusing on northern Cameroon, where Boko Haram frequently operates. After hours of work, they determined that the exact site of the execution was Zelevet, a small village in the far north region of Cameroon, where government troops and rebel groups often clash. When analysing the uniforms, specifically the insignia and weapons, the team identified the soldiers as members of the Rapid Intervention Battalion, an elite force fighting Boko Haram. The investigators also found photos of one of the perpetrators on Facebook that matched the images in the video. This evidence completely refuted the government's denial. In the context of 2015, the far north of Cameroon was a battleground between the military and Boko Haram, a group notorious for brutal attacks. In this climate of suspicion, soldiers could easily accuse and kill innocent civilians. Motives may have included abuse of power, revenge, or the intent to intimidate communities. They likely believed that filming it would not lead to any punishment. The undeniable evidence from BBC Africa Eye forced them to change their stance. 7 soldiers were arrested and charged with murder. By 2020, 4 soldiers were sentenced to 10 years in prison, while another, who had filmed the video, received a lighter sentence. The case of Jessica Runions and Kara Kopetsky. The story begins with Kyle Youst, born in 1988 in Kansas City, Missouri. He grew up with a father who was addicted to drugs and abusive, an upbringing that greatly shaped Youst's later personality, particularly his extreme jealousy and controlling behaviour in relationships. In 2006, Youst began dating Kara Kopetsky, a 17-year-old student at Belton High School. The relationship lasted about 9 months and quickly became toxic as Youst displayed extreme jealousy and violent tendencies. He once kidnapped Kara, forced her into his car, and threatened to kill her if she left him. This led her to file for an order of protection in April 2007. On May 4th, 2007, Kara suddenly vanished after leaving school. Surveillance cameras captured the last known image of her at 9:19 AM, walking away from the building. Family and friends could not reach her, and she was reported missing. Police questioned Youst, who claimed he didn't know what happened and that he was worried about her too. With no additional leads, the case went cold for years. By 2010, a former roommate revealed that Youst had lost control and harmed Kara. In 2011, another ex-girlfriend cooperated with the FBI to secretly record Youst, capturing his confession that he strangled Kara to death and hid her body in the woods. Several other witnesses also testified that Youst had admitted to killing out of jealousy, providing matching details. But without a body, the case could not be closed. 9 years later, in 2016, Youst began dating Jessica Runions, a 21-year-old who worked at a bar. That relationship also quickly became volatile and violent due to his jealousy. On September 9th, 2016, Jessica disappeared after an argument with Youst at a party in Grandview. Her car was later found burned, and Youst was arrested with burns on his body, evidence that he had tried to destroy the vehicle to cover his tracks. In April 2017, police used Google Earth satellite imagery and other mapping tools to identify key areas that had previously been inaccessible or overlooked. They discovered 2 sets of human remains, one identified as Jessica's and the other as Kara's, through DNA and dental analysis. This discovery confirmed long-held suspicions and provided crucial evidence against Youst. Relying on circumstantial evidence such as his burn injuries, witness testimony, history of violence, and the disappearance circumstances, prosecutors charged Youst on October 5, 2017, with first-degree murder for Cara and Jessica, as well as crimes related to abandoning their bodies. The trial took place in April 2021. Prosecutors presented evidence including the recorded confession, burn evidence, and testimony from multiple witnesses about Just's violent and jealous behaviour. After 9 days of proceedings, Just was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter in Cara's death and second-degree murder in Jessica's, receiving a total prison sentence of 45 years. The murder of Nancy Cooper. In 1999, two young people, Nancy Lynn Rentz, born in 1973 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and Bradley Graham Cooper, born the same year in Medicine Hat, Alberta, met by chance at IBM Calgary. They quickly fell in love and married in October 2000. Soon after, they moved to Cary, North Carolina, when Brad was hired by Cisco Systems. At first, Nancy planned to find work, but Brad did not support getting her a work visa, leaving her financially dependent on him. In the early years, their life seemed peaceful. Nancy joined the local running community and socialized with neighbors, while Brad advanced in his career. However, in 2002, Nancy confided to her family that she no longer wanted to live in Cary as she felt lonely and isolated. Brad persuaded her to stay, but from then on, the marriage began to deteriorate. Brad started limiting Nancy's spending to $300 per week, forcing her to sell old belongings or work from home for extra income. He often criticized her, calling her a spender. In 2004, their first daughter, Bella, was born, followed by Katie in 2006. Nancy was a devoted mother, still active in running and community events, but inside the marriage, things were falling apart. Brad had affairs, including with one of Nancy's friends. She found out, spoke to a lawyer, and began planning to divorce him. As a tech engineer, Brad used his skills to secretly monitor Nancy's emails, listen to her calls, and even took the children's passports to prevent her from leaving the US. Nancy started sleeping in the same room as her daughters, locking the door at night and keeping her car keys with her. In early 2008, Nancy contacted a lawyer to prepare for divorce, hid important documents, and made plans to take the children back to Canada. During a July 2008 family vacation in South Carolina, she broke down in tears to her mother, saying, "I just want to go home." Her family hired a lawyer for her, ready to help her leave. On the evening of July 11th, 2008, the couple attended a neighbourhood party in Lockmere, Cary. Brad returned home with the children around 8 p.m, while Nancy stayed until about 12:25 a.m, then came home. The next morning, Brad was recorded on security cameras at Harris Teeter grocery store at 6:22 a.m, buying milk, and later returning to purchase laundry detergent and bleach. That same day, Nancy was scheduled to meet her friend Jessica Adam at 8 a.m. to help paint her house, but she never showed up. Jessica, knowing Nancy never broke promises, became concerned and called police at 1:50 p.m, telling them the couple was going through a divorce. On July 14th, a man walking his dog discovered Nancy's body in a residential area on Fielding Drive, about 3 miles from her home. She had been strangled with broken neck bones, dressed in athletic clothing, barefoot, and with no signs of sexual assault. Investigators soon learned that the location matched a recent Google Map search found on Brad's laptop, suggesting premeditation. They also discovered Brad had hacked Nancy's email, revealing her plans for divorce and return to Canada, highlighting his motive rooted in anger and control. Testimony from family and friends confirmed Brad's pattern of emotional abuse and controlling behaviour. On October 27, 2008, Brad Cooper was arrested for first-degree murder. He was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The case of Gioacchino Gammino. The story begins with Gioacchino Gammino. He was born in 1960 in Agrigento, southern Sicily. By the time he was old enough to carry a knife, Gammino had joined the Stidda, a rising criminal organisation and bitter rival of the Cosa Nostra. The Stidda specialised in drug trafficking, extortion, and bloody hits to gain control of territory. In 1984, Gammino was first arrested during an anti-mafia operation led by legendary judge Giovanni Falcone, but he was soon released and continued to plunge deeper into the mafia wars. In 1989, Gammino was accused of killing an innocent civilian by mistake, believing the man to be a Cosa Nostra member. Falcone, who was both an Italian judge and prosecutor, was assassinated in 1992, but the investigation into Gammino's activities went on. Finally, in 1998, Gammino was arrested in Barcelona and extradited to Italy, where he was charged with murder, drug trafficking, and extortion. However, in 2002, while serving his sentence at Rebibbia prison, Gammino pulled off a dramatic escape. He took advantage of the chaos during a film shoot inside the prison to slip away. From that moment, he vanished from law enforcement's radar, becoming one of Italy's most wanted fugitives. After his escape, Gammino fled to Spain, choosing Galapagar, a quiet town near Madrid, as his hideout. Under the false identity, Manuel, he built an entirely new life, running a produce shop called El Huerto de Manu and a restaurant, Cocina de Manu, serving Sicilian cuisine. He blended into the local community and, to avoid detection, cut off contact with his family in Sicily for a full decade. His new life lasted nearly 20 years. In 2014, a European arrest warrant was issued, but Gammino remained safe until 2021. During an investigation, Italian police spotted an image on Google Street View taken in front of El Huerto de Manu. In the photo, a man with a solid build, silver hair, and a scar on his chin matched Gammino's description. Digging further, they found the Facebook page for Cocina de Manu, which showed pictures of him in a chef's outfit alongside traditional Sicilian dishes. The scar was undeniable proof. On December 17th, 2021, Spanish police raided Galapagar and arrested Gammino. Handcuffed, he was stunned and asked, "How did you find me? I haven't even spoken to my family in 10 years. He was later extradited back to Italy to serve the rest of his life sentence. The case of Paul Mathieson. In January 2018, in the town of Renfrew, Scotland, there was a man named Paul Mathieson, 37 years old, a single father living on Houston Street. Due to the hardship of raising a child on his own, he was known to become aggressive when drunk. In the same area lived Jamie Anderson, 36, from nearby Paisley, who had a violent past with 22 prior convictions and had served time in prison 8 times. The two men happened to be interested in the same woman, a flirtatious woman named Gillian Carswell. Their first meeting took place at the Kind Man's Bar. They quickly realised they had both been romantically involved with Gillian, who was described as someone who often played between relationships, stirring up conflict between her ex-boyfriends and new partners. Luckily, that first meeting ended peacefully, despite a slightly tense conversation. Everything changed on the night of January 13th, 2018. That evening, Paul had been enjoying himself at the Western Bar and bought a pizza to take home for his child. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, while walking home, Jamie Anderson appeared from somewhere and began following him. At first, they greeted each other casually, even hugging in a friendly manner before parting ways. But just seconds later, Paul set the pizza box down on the hood of a parked car. Anderson took this as a threatening signal, believing Paul was trying to provoke him, and immediately attacked. A powerful punch knocked Paul to the ground. Anderson didn't stop. He kept punching and repeatedly kicked Paul's head, neck, and throat with his favourite Nike shoes, even stomping on him. The assault happened right near Paul's home, just behind Renfrew Town Hall. Anderson then drove away in a silver Mazda, leaving Paul lying unconscious in the street. Paul was found by local residents and rushed to Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow. He suffered a brain hemorrhage, blood in his lungs, and temporary cardiac arrest. After 6 days in a coma, Paul passed away. Police immediately launched an investigation, using Google Maps and digital tracking technology to trace the suspect. By analysing location data and the timeline feature on maps, detectives reconstructed the Mazda's route, which led them to Anderson. A search of his home uncovered the pair of shoes, and Paul's DNA was found on the stitching in the right sole. Anderson was arrested as soon as the DNA results were confirmed. Initially charged with murder, Anderson pleaded guilty to manslaughter at the High Court in Glasgow in March 2019. As there was no evidence of premeditation, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison. When the verdict was read, he showed no emotion, probably because, after 8 prior stints in prison, one more didn't matter much to him. The case of Jorge Arevalo-Viera. The story began on the night of June 15th, 2017, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, when 2 young women had just left a Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant and were followed closely by a grey pickup truck with Kentucky plates. The truck forced them to stop, and a man wearing a ski mask and holding a black baseball bat jumped out, warning, "Don't call the police." Fortunately, they sped away and reported the incident to the police. Officers quickly identified the 2 suspects as Jose Arevalo-Viera, 28, a citizen of El Salvador who had been deported twice, and his accomplice, Gabriel Arias Martinez, 18, both from Louisville, Kentucky. Just a few hours later, in downtown Milwaukee, MD, a female healthcare worker in her 30s, had just finished her shift and was parking her car when Arevalo-Viera smashed the window with a sledgehammer, held a box cutter to her neck, and forced her to drive towards Chicago, while Arias Martinez followed in the pickup truck. On the road, MD noticed the kidnapper using Google Maps on a Samsung Galaxy phone, which helped her figure out they were near General Mitchell International Airport. difficult. Arevalo-Viera then forced MD to turn into a dark, isolated area near the 27th Street exit, robbed her of her wallet, dog, and personal belongings, and moved her to the back seat of the pickup driven by Arias Martinez. There, he pulled out a 3-inch curved blade knife, threatened her, and brutally assaulted her. The two men argued in Spanish, with Arevalo-Viera shouting, "Get the gun, I'll shoot her." He repeatedly slapped, punched, and raped MD, while Arias Martinez did nothing to stop him, instead turning the music up loud to drown out the victim's cries. At around 3 a.m, they dumped MD by the roadside near Highway 165 in Kenosha County. Severely injured and exhausted, she managed to reach a truck stop in Pleasant Prairie, where a driver lent her a phone to call 911. She gave police detailed descriptions of the attackers, the truck, and their use of Google Maps. Milwaukee police mobilized more than 20 investigators. A fingerprint found on a Ziploc bag inside MD's car matched Arevalo-Viera, and a sexual assault kit confirmed his DNA. Surveillance cameras captured the men using the victim's credit card at a Chicago bar. The most crucial lead came from a geofence warrant sent to Google, allowing investigators to identify any devices that had used Google Maps in the area during the crime. Google pinpointed a single phone belonging to Arevalo-Viera, with location data matching the crime timeline. Working with T-Mobile, police tracked the phone in real time. On June 20th, Kentucky police spotted the pickup on I-71 near Louisville. It was Arevalo-Viera's truck. He fled into the woods, armed with a knife, but was subdued by a police K-9. The next day, Arias Martinez was also arrested and partially confessed. Both were held on $500, zero bail, and waived extradition hearings. In 2019, Arias Martinez pleaded guilty to kidnapping and was sentenced to 25 years in prison, plus 15 years of extended supervision. In June that year, Arevalo-Viera went to trial denying the charges, but with MD's testimony, fingerprint evidence, DNA, and Google data, the jury convicted him on 7 counts, including first-degree sexual assault, kidnapping, and armed robbery. In August 2019, he was sentenced to more than 100 years in prison, virtually ensuring he will die behind bars. The case of Jorge Luis Pérez. The story began before 2023, when Jorge Luis Pérez Ochandarina, about 40 years old and from Cuba, was married to a fellow Cuban woman. When his wife decided to emigrate to Spain, she met 48-year-old Manuel Isla Gallardo from the village of Tajueco, a tiny settlement in Soria province, northern Spain, with only about 56 residents, and began an affair. The marriage between Jorge and his wife collapsed, and she quickly remarried Manuel. The couple settled in Tajueco. Despite the separation, Jorge still harbored deep feelings for his ex-wife. In November 2023, he decided to leave Cuba for Spain in hopes of rekindling their relationship. When he arrived in Tajueco, Jorge even stayed temporarily in the same house as his ex-wife and Manuel. Fearing he might lose his wife and peaceful life, Manuel grew increasingly jealous and paranoid. Just a few days after Jorge's arrival, he suddenly vanished. His family in Cuba began receiving WhatsApp messages from his number, claiming he had met another woman and left Spain. However, the tone of the messages was strange, cold, impersonal, and lacking the personal details Jorge typically included. Suspicious, the family contacted police. Despite the report, authorities could not locate him, and the case was classified as a disappearance, stalling for over a year. Then, in October 2024, Google Street View, returning to Tajueco for the first time in 15 years, unintentionally captured shocking images. In the photos, Manuel, dressed in jeans and a shirt, was seen bending over to lift a large white plastic bag, heavy and human-shaped, into the trunk of a red car. Other shots appeared to show either Manuel or his wife pushing a wheelbarrow, carrying a similar bag through the village toward the nearby cemetery. These images sat unnoticed on Google Maps until a local resident stumbled upon them and found them suspicious. They alerted police, who traced the license plate in the photos to Manuel. Investigators wiretapped his phone, searched his home and car, and discovered traces of blood, tools likely used to dismember a body, and inconsistencies in his statements. From the locations in the Street View photos, they identified an abandoned cemetery in Andaluz, about a 12-minute drive from the village. On December 11th, 2024, police dug at the cemetery and found Jorge's upper torso in an advanced state of decomposition, confirmed through DNA. Other remains are still being sought. The next day, Manuel and his wife were arrested on charges of murder, unlawful detention, and concealing a body. Both were held without bail. While the Street View images alone were insufficient for a direct conviction, combined with the fake messages, physical evidence, and witness testimony, they broke the investigative deadlock. As of August 2025, the case remains in trial. Natalie Bollinger. In December 2017, in a wooded area in Colorado, the body of 19-year-old Natalie Bollinger was found with a gunshot wound to the head at point-blank range. Police quickly launched launched an investigation and heard a statement from 22-year-old Lopez, a pizza delivery worker in Thornton, Colorado, who claimed he had seen an ad on Craigslist posted by Natalie herself. The ad's title was, "I want to commit suicide." According to Lopez, this was her plea for someone to help her end her life because she did not have the courage to do it herself. Lopez said he responded to the ad, pretending to be a professional hitman, and the two exchanged over 100 messages, along with a 6-minute phone call. He claimed that Natalie arranged to meet him, brought along her boyfriend's 9mm handgun, and instructed him to carry out the shooting in an execution style from behind. However, when they arrived at the location, Natalie supposedly changed her mind and asked him to take her home. Lopez said he complied and left, knowing nothing more. Investigators, however, quickly noticed inconsistencies. Lopez's story had numerous holes and did not match the evidence. To verify his claims, police retrieved data from the Google Maps timeline on Lopez's phone. The results made the truth clear. GPS data showed Lopez was exactly at the spot where Natalie was killed, at the precise time of the murder, directly contradicting his original statement. Lopez then changed his account, claiming Natalie shot herself and that he could not stop her. This only reinforced the theory that it was a murder, not a suicide or a so-called death pact, as Lopez tried to justify. Additionally, during a search of Lopez's vehicle, police found Natalie's wallet and the 9mm handgun in the trunk, direct evidence linking him to the crime. The autopsy also revealed that Natalie had a lethal amount of heroin in her system, along with signs of long-term methamphetamine use, which likely left her unable to resist when she was killed. Under the weight of the evidence, Lopez altered his story again, this time admitting that he shot Natalie, but still insisting it was her wish. In 2019, after more than a year in jail, awaiting trial, and facing the possibility of life in prison for first-degree murder, Lopez agreed to plead guilty to second-degree murder in a deal with prosecutors. As a result, he was sentenced to 48 years in prison and 5 years of parole. Okay, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to support us. Thanks for watching all the way to the end,